No Brakes on the Swamp Train. Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, Volume 4. Okay. One of the things that I think is important to a long running comic book series, not that I've really read a lot of them consistently. Swamp Thing's probably the one that I've sort of kept up with the most and have sort of just been sort of reading through the entire run. And one important thing to keep it fresh, to keep it engaging, is I think you got to know how to strike a balance between sort of episodic, self-contained stories and sort of larger epics or crossover nonsense. This is a book that mostly does it well. You step back and you can just appreciate that you got a few really good self-contained stories in the beginning. You got a Swamp Thing. First off, one of his psychedelic yams drops off, and three different people. It's basically just each goes to their own on their own individual drug trip, and it's part of like what you bring to the table. If you got bad vibes, you're gonna have a bad trip like this fella. If you got good vibes, you're gonna have a good trip like this couple. I like that. I like this page here. That's fun. So you got cool self-contained stories like that. The other one, he's Swamp Thing is tracking down the serial killer. It's from the killer's point of view. He's killed like 160 something people, and he's obsessed with everybody's eyes. He knows everybody's eye color. Here's Batman for some reason. We're gonna get into this in a minute. How a sort of company-wide crossover can kind of muddy the waters a lot of times. But yeah, it's sort of the thing I like about Swamp Thing is I think I do like the episodic stories the best. That's why I like Star Trek as well. I like a good episodic adventure that's sort of mostly self-contained, and the consistency is really in the characters. Like it's a self-contained story, but you know the characters, you know how they're going to react and stuff like that. So that's cool and fun. Okay, so I'm not too informed on the Crisis on Infinite Earths thing. I'm not too up on all the DC Comics crises, but this volume sort of coincides with, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know what it's called. Is it Infinite Crisis? What's the difference between Infinite Crisis and Crisis on Infinite Earths? Is that the same thing? Anyway, so there's sort of this company-wide crossover going on, and it sort of dips a bit into that, and it's making the best out of what is probably, I assume, some sort of editorial mandate where it's like, well, you got to touch on this. Where the whole company's doing this crossover thing, so you got to touch on it. And it's not the worst thing, but it still just sort of gets in the way and is just kind of detracting from the what should be a Swamp Thing centric tale. Anyway, I don't know. I think crossovers are kind of stupid in general half the time. When I first started reading comics back in the day, it was like Civil War, and that was cool. There was a really good like one after the other of like Civil War and what was the next one? Secret Invasion or whatever. And that stuff is like fun to an extent, but when you're really like invested in one particular character, and then it sort of goes off in this tangent that really has nothing to do with him, it's kind of dumb. So yeah, so it starts off with some episodic adventures, then we go into a sort of it sort of expands into the broader magical DC Comics universe, where we've got all these characters who I've never heard of. They're in some big, they're doing a whatever, they're sitting in a circle holding hands, channeling their psychic powers. And this is, again, this wasn't bad. Like, I think it's cool after, to take a breather from the episodic stuff and to sort of, it's fun to branch out once in a while, but I wouldn't want this. I wouldn't want this to be the direction of the comic all the time. I don't want all these crossovers with Batman or Zatanna or whoever the hell. I really would just like it to mostly stay focused on Swamp Thing. I don't need Deadman or the Phantom Stranger. It's fine. Again, it's fine to do it once in a while. I like that. Let's see here. They sort of have, I guess, their magical equivalent of the Final Crisis, and this is a really I like this where there's this dark primordial being, and nobody can really perceive the entire scope of this entity, and so it's eventually revealed that the Spectre, who is this real tough hombre, he's the toughest hombre in the supernatural world. He's wrestling with what is but the thumbnail of this giant horrific monstrosity, and it brings it back to old Swamp Thing here, which is good. Swamp Thing ends up being the saving the day with just with his words and deeds, and so that was cool. I don't remember where it goes after this. I know at some point Swamp Thing goes into space, and so that should be fun. So I don't know. This was, it didn't, this volume didn't, it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't the worst thing ever. It didn't shake the foundations of whatever. I don't know. This is fun. I like how he goes to the rainforest here, and he's sort of, his body takes on whatever environment he's in. So him being in the Brazilian rainforest, he adopts into a more sort of, tropical foliage. And that was cool. He meets all the other Swamp Things. He meets the guy from House of Secrets. Fun stuff. Yeah, I think that's all I got to say about that. Okay, goodbye.